I've been sitting right here, locked in this room all through the night, trying to write every second of my life in this mic. It's been a fight just to get them to listen and pay attention. Punching till my knuckles are bleeding, they made a dent, not to mention ain't got a dollar to my name, just living gig to gig, straight caught up in the flame. Sleeping in my car, hoping to sell a disc, cause you're wanting it so bad, you're tasting it on your lips. Get a pen and paint a picture, of the pen and pull the ladder, whether it's pitter patter, people broken jabs, or well, it doesn't matter, cause this hurt won't all be forever. I'm keeping my head high and hoping for the better when everything's down and out under the weather. And every first round you're out, stuck in the shredder. Yeah, I claim to have friends, but they're never around, so you keep moving on, one man in the crowd. This is my day, this is my night, this is my pain, this is my life, this is what I was born to do. I was born to do. Every new day, every new night, every new stage, every new fight, this is what I was born to do. I was born to do. This is what I'm made for. Every single moment that I'm living, I can feel it on the stage floor. You don't know the half of what I've given to make it up to this level. Every day at home, spitting, every day alone, wishing, while every road shifting and every cold wind is getting heavy, road slipping. Every day might be your last chance to make it. Every day I'm seeing less cash on the bank slip, grasping it anxious, rap like it's ancient. Give them something that they've never had from this basement. Show them what you're made of. Just tell them straight up, you can go and take on the world. What you afraid of? Yes, it's right around the bend. It's a first round knockout, let the rounds begin. No need to count to 10, we can count the win, and you can count on me to knock out every sound I'm in. This is my day, this is my night, this is my pain, this is my life, this is what I was born to do. I was born to do. Every new day, every new night, every new stage, every new fight, this is what I was born to do. There's a fear out there and it's coming your way. Don't let it stop you from living for what you were made. It's not a dream, it's a destiny.
And welcome to the Elite Sports Podcast here, powered by Starcade Media. We are here with a very special guest. That is certainly Super Bowl champion Brad Johnson. Brad, we saw some of the highlights there from your TikToks, from some of your trick shots, man. First off, just how did you get into doing some of those? Because that is great stuff. And man, guys, go check it out. It's on Brad's Instagram, Brad_Johnson_14.
Yep, I think that's it. So I've only been social media here pretty soon. The first time I signed up for it, it was all kinds of crazy numbers on Twitter and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. But, actually a couple of years ago when the pandemic hit, the kids were home. It was the best family time we ever had. I mean, we were talking, having discussions. We were eating. We were family time. We're playing checkers. We're playing whatever the game it was. And then my kids got on TikTok, and I said, let me see what that thing is. And so when I first got on there, I put a lot of my videos of workouts, like personal workout videos and of my playing career. Then I started seeing some trick shots and stuff. So what I tried to do with with my trick shots is basically it's not just one trick shot, like hit it with a hammer and knock it in a goal, which there's a lot of elite guys like that. But I try to make 3, 4, maybe 5 shots in a row with a football, basketball, and honestly, it's fun for me to make. It's challenging. People will ask, how long does it take? And I'll tell you, it's a lifetime of practice. I mean, it just doesn't happen overnight. I'll tell you, it takes what it takes. You'll see the sweat. And sometimes it's first time, first take. But I've had fun doing it, sharing it, and hopefully I entertain, hopefully never disappoint, and just bring a little laughter in the social media world.
Absolutely. And you mentioned your kids, they're on TikTok. I see them in the videos taking part with you. You got Max and Jake at Texas A&M. Max started off at LSU. How they both kind of wind up at Texas A&M, and it sounds like Max could be the starting quarterback come this fall.
Yeah, it's really, they don't make a lot of TikToks. They're kind of not on it. They did a couple years ago, a little bit more so Jake, my younger son. But we have 2 boys. My wife, Nikki, and I have been married for 23 years. We live in Athens, Georgia. And our 2 boys, Max, he's a quarterback. He first went to LSU, started like 12, 13 games there. Loved it, loved his teammates and all those kind of things. But sometimes changes are necessary. And so he went to Texas A&M. He was recruited by Jimbo Fisher when he was at Florida State. You're just in a time of change now with coaches, players, transfer portal. It's hard to really explain, and you have to do what's in your best interest. So he loves it there. Jake was committed to LSU. He decommitted, and then they're both roommates now. They were getting ready to split. Jake was getting ready to go to Oklahoma. Max had different plans, and it was just they were very gracious, very thankful for Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher that they're roommates. They're going to play together and play in the bright lights. It's going to be kind of fun.
That's awesome.
Well, you're there in SEC country in Athens, Georgia, home of the defending national champions. You got two sons at Texas A&M. And now we got Texas and Oklahoma coming into the conference as college football just continues one domino after another. This college football world that we live in is not the one necessarily that you played in there at Florida State in the early 90s, my friend.
Yeah, no doubt. When I was at Florida State, the school at that time in athletics, we were in the Metro Conference. I played basketball also. So I played against Purvis Ellison and Elliott Perry and Bimbo Coles at Virginia Tech and all that. I mean, I played against them all. But in football, we were independent. And so we played a lot of the same schools, but then we played, we're independent, like a lot like what Notre Dame is now.
Yep.
And so my brother-in-law, Mark Rick, he coached me at Florida State, was the head coach here at Georgia. So we've kind of grown up here in Athens and SEC football and all those kind of things. But yeah, the landscape is changing. I mean, you see, coaches going from place to place. You see, is it the ACC? Remember the Big East?
Yeah.
You remember Chris Mullen and St. John's and
right. Georgetown.
And Patrick Ewing.
Yeah.
I mean,
UConn.
that was the Big East, man. But then they spread out. Like, what? Who's in the conference now? And so that's kind of the way sports are going now. And obviously, it's money driven. I mean, who would ever think UCLA and USC would be in the Big Ten? I don't even know what that conference is called anymore. Like, how did that happen? But it's a money-making drill. And so that's, as a kid now, you go to the best place that you want to be coached by, then let the TV people work itself out. And us as fans, we'll just figure it out as the TV people and the NCAA people make those decisions.
Well, Nick Saban says they don't have to pay for recruits like they do at A&M. So I don't know if there's any checks heading your way. Hopefully so. I mean, my God, if Saban's going to make all these statements, we might as well just, get the money to the right people here. What's going on, Brad?
Well, let me be upfront about that. I offer to pay for my son Jake to be a walk-on at Texas A&M. So when you make statements like that, be careful when you include everyone.
Absolutely.
I mean, everyone is not us.
Right.
And so I'll be very firm about that. For the love of the game, I'm all about that. Right fit, right place, I'm all about that. So sometimes things are said without really putting a lot of thought into it. And so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to your playing days, I mean, we're heading into the Hall of Fame here. A guy you play with, Leroy Butler, is going into the Hall of Fame come early August. I mean, you played with him at Florida State for a couple years. You played against him when he was with the Packers. You were with the Vikings. Talk about kind of Leroy, the teammate, the opponent, and the person.
Yeah, when I went to Florida State, the very first 2 days that you go to Florida State, offensive players go to the defensive coaches. Defensive players go to the offensive coaches. And so they put you through their agility drill. I was going through Mickey Andrews, the defensive coordinator there for years. He's telling me to slide, move, dive on the ground, and all those kind of things. And I looked at the guy on my right, and I was going side by side with a guy named Leroy Butler. And I'm like, who is this guy? This guy is legit. And so when our secondary was Deion Sanders, it was Leroy Butler, Martin Mayhew, who played 14 years in the NFL, won a Super Bowl with the Redskins, now a GM, and Dedrick Dodge, who played 7 years, won a Super Bowl with the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, that's legit corners, safeties. But Leroy had played against him a bunch when he was in Green Bay. I thought he was the first safety that kind of changed the game when the game was going because they brought him down in the box a little bit later, like how John Lynch was brought in the box and could defend the run, but then also could cover people one-on-one. Special player, obviously he's a Hall of Famer now. I wish he'd made Hall of Fame 10 years ago. And it kind of becomes logjam, but have all the respect in the world. Obviously, he started the Lambeau Leap there in Lambeau Field, and great person, great guy. I think he's in the media world now, but no more person deserves it to put that golden jacket on than Leroy Butler. I think he goes by Leroy, but I always called him Leroy.
Yeah.
Well, we got to talk about your former coach there at Florida State, Bobby Bowden. Someone here, even growing up in Missouri, I just had such an admiration for that Florida State program. Man, when you live in the Midwest and you got cold winters and you look down at a school like Florida State and you got these great athletes and putting up these tremendous numbers, quarterbacks like yourself, guys like Chris Winkie and Charlie Ward. I became enamored with that school, and Bobby Bowden was a big part of that. The personality, how enigmatic he was as a person, and the kind of leader he was. I mean, Bobby, at age 90, got COVID, survived, only to finally succumb to his illnesses at age 91, I believe. Just kind of talk about Coach Bowden as far as a person, as a coach, and how instrumental he was in your development that kind of led to your tremendous career in the NFL.
Yeah, Coach Bowden coached 34 years at one school. It's incredible. That doesn't happen. It's just incredible. And I remember when he came into my house up in Black Mountain, North Carolina on his recruiting visit, and he gave me a spiel about Florida State and all those kind of things. And he said, at the end of the conversation, he said, "Do you have any questions for me?" And I said, "Yes, sir. I got 2 questions. Are you going to play the best player?" I was bold. Okay. 18-year-old guy, "You going to play the best player?" Like, yeah. And I said, "How much longer are you going to coach?" And at the time we thought he was older. And I think he was like in his 60s at that time, 62, 63. And ended up coaching a lot longer. And I remember at Florida State, when I first went there, I think he had 165, 170 wins. Went on his 200th win. Okay, we beat LSU in Doak Campbell Stadium. And then on that Monday, he called a team meeting. Usually we meet at 1:30. He called a team meeting at 1 o'clock. And I told my roommate, I said, Gene, his name was Gene Howe. I said, Gene, I don't know. I got a feeling Coach Bowden's going to retire today. I don't know, man. He's going to announce his retirement, tell us first. He's never called a meeting like this before. And to be honest with you, he gave his testimony that day. And to the team, for that to happen in college these days, wow, it's incredible. And so later he goes on to win 65, 70 games. I don't know what he won. But when I remember, it was October 13th, 2013, I believe. Him and his wife, they named the field Doak Campbell Stadium. They named it Bobby Bowden Field. Mm-hmm. And we had about 400 players show up as they were naming it for him. And he walked out, him and his wife, Ann, they walked out from the goalpost all the way out to the midfield, and he's going to spike the spear in the middle of the field. And we weren't talking about how many games he won, the national championships, the Heismans. We were really talking about the impact he made on our lives. You talk about the mustard seed, we've all become fathers, people of the community, coaches, and you talk about changing generations for lives to come. And that's to say Bobby Bowden was my coach. I can't speak long enough about it, but awesome coach. And only had first class. Things didn't go great for me at Florida State as a player, but I only had first class things to say about him. And that's my coach and that's my school.
Yeah, and sometimes the impact off the field is more important than what happens on the field. And that's the case right there with you and Bobby Bowden. But you're a 9th round pick. I mean, you have 2 stints with the Vikings. Talk about some of the great quarterbacks that you played with. I mean, a Rich Gannon, a Randall Cunningham, a Warren Moon, Dante Culpepper as well. Just kind of what you were able to learn from them as a 9th round pick, a young kid coming in, then your second stint with Minnesota, just these great quarterbacks that you got to play with.
I think you always learn from others. When I was at Florida State, to change it a little bit, I was with Peter Tom Willis, played in the NFL 4 years. Danny McManus played 19 years in the Canadian League. Chris Winkie won a Heisman National Championship. Charlie Warren won a Heisman National Championship. Casey Weldon was runner-up. Kenny Felder was a first-round baseball pick, competitive. In the pros, Rich Gannon, Jim McMahon, Warren Moon, Randall Cunningham, Jeff George, the list goes on. And I think what you learn is you learn from others. You learn how to compete. You learn how to respect others. You learn how to help others. I think honestly, probably for me, the most important guy in my career backing up was Warren Moon. And because I was still young at the time, I learned how he dealt with the media, how he dealt with touchdowns, how he dealt with adversity, throwing interceptions, losing games, the impact he had on the team and community. And then I was able to kind of learn from him and then pass it on. So unbelievable the amount of quarterbacks. I only listed just a handful of guys, but you learn to pass it on. And but very thankful for all those guys with.
Who had a prettier ball when they threw it coming off their hand? Was it Dan Marino or Warren Moon? I go back and forth with those two all the time.
Well, I didn't get to play with Dan Marino. I played against him one time, saw him play a couple times as a backup, but he was spectacular. But Warren Moon, I thought he threw a pretty ball. I mean, it was pretty. I remember we were playing the Saints one time, and the game was kind of an ugly game, to be honest with you. I think we were down 13-7, something like that. And 20 seconds to go, third and 8 on the 8-yard line against the Saints, and we call a timeout. And we come over to the sidelines and like we're worried about is it going to be an all-out blitz? What is it going to be? Are they going to play quarters coverage? What are they going to do? And all this conversation is taking place between Denny Green and the offense coordinator Brian Billick. And I remember Warren. He asked the head trainer Dennis Ryan. He said, "Dennis, hey, I need two things. I need some lip balm, and I need a file for my finger." And when he did that, because I've been running so long, I actually went down and sat on the bench. I said, something good's getting ready to happen. and he was calm about it. But actually, when Warren threw the ball, it's like he put his fingernail in the ball, and you could hear a click when the ball came off of his finger, and it was spectacular. He threw a touchdown pass or a corner pass to Qadri Ishmael. We win the game, and I just remember how calm he was, and I threw a pretty ball.
I mean, Brad, you go on to throw for over 29,000 yards in your career, 166 touchdowns, yet there's some kind of strange media stigma attached to you. It's almost like the national media has created a separate category for championship quarterbacks. It's like, okay, Tom Brady, he's won 6. Joe Montana, Terry Bradshaw, they've got 4. Eli and Peyton Manning, they've got 2. And it's like, well, you can win a Super Bowl with a Brad Johnson or a Trent Dilfer if you have a top 10 defense in NFL history. Do you feel slighted when that comes up? Because it seems like that there's media's conveniently tried to fit you and Trent Dilfer into some kind of category together for quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls.
There's only 46 presidents ever.
Right.
There's only 67 guys, I think, that have won the Masters. I think there's 86 or 87 guys that have won the Heisman. 130 some odd Kentucky Derby winners. There's only 35 Super Bowl winners. 32 are still living. Bart Starr, Kenny Stabler, and Johnny Unitas. They passed away. And but listen, I'm happy with my career, what I accomplished. 17 years, 13 straight years. I've thrown over 60% and led 3 different organizations to playoffs. Number 1 in the NFC the year we won the Super Bowl. It's hard to win it. It's hard to win it. And so you don't do that by being a wooden Indian. And so I think it's funny how media can sell something and they take a storyline and people can take, perceptions. But I think when, you get to know, a couple years of college basketball, I was sort of, I was played a long time in the NFL. And so it's interesting how perceptions go, but listen, you can't you can't put out every fire and those kind of things. So I just, sometimes when people think you're the village idiot, I can kind of hold up the ring and say, you know what, it's better to be a has-been than never was.
Absolutely. And I mean, Tom Brady can have all those extra Super Bowls that he's got, but you beat him in the quarterback challenge in 2003. So you got that over Tom.
Yeah, no doubt. That was a competitive day. And I remember that day, there are actually 7 things I did in the final event to beat him. And no one knows what kind of took place until you go slow-mo and see what took place. But I remember that day when Tom lost. He finished second or third, but I remember how competitive he was. Like it was, and I just like, God, this guy's gonna have a long career and great career. And what he's done is unbelievable. Him staying healthy, him winning and winning and winning. It's incredible. It's contagious and it's inspiring. So it's fun to, say I'm in the same crowd with him.
Yeah.
Well, Brad, we had a quarterback here named Alex Smith for 5 seasons, and his nickname here kind of became Captain Checkdown. Now, Alex Smith, of course, comes to the Chiefs, stabilizes the organization, and kind of puts things off to where we see it now with Patrick Mahomes. He takes the San Francisco 49ers right to the NFC Championship game prior to that, and your former teammate, Sean Salisbury, he's actually a really good friend of ours, kind of gives you this name of Charlie Checkdown as well. First off, and Sean's such a good friend of ours. Like, have you guys talked since? Are you guys cool? Because I think he's one of the best analysts in the business. And what did you think of that moniker? Because Alex Smith was kind of given that here, yet all he did was win regular season games. You won a Super Bowl. Again, we're talking about these kind of stigmas, and that check down stigma of not going deep, not, maybe pushing the ball downfield as many times as people think leads to this check down thing. I don't.
Yeah. So I was actually with Sean for a couple years in Minnesota. Yeah. He had a big impact on my career just because we were on the sidelines together and, talking through 2-minute situations or what might happen on the clock or what you might need you to do here. And just being in the meeting rooms with him, very smart guy, done incredible. If you actually listen to him on the radio and TV,
so good.
He's got great analogy. He's got great enthusiasm, smart for the game. And it's funny how perceptions of words kind of get lost. But there's this guy named Greg Maddux, baseball pitcher. You know, he can throw the heater. You know, no, he doesn't. He throws the ball about 85 miles an hour. He paints the corners. You know, he gets what's called a head in the count, 1-0. You know, I mean, 1 ball, 2, you know, 1 strike, no balls. He puts the pressure on you, you know, those kind of things. So same thing in tennis. You get your first serve in, you're probably going to win. As a quarterback, there's a thing called never go broke taking a profit. Broke taking a profit. Believe in it. And the thing about it is you got to get ahead in the rundown game. And so there's a lot of great players, a lot of great receivers. You have to give those guys a chance to make plays. But you know the best guy with the ball in his hand? It's the guy in the backfield. It's the guy catching the ball. It's the running back. And so, but what I always say is coverage dictates where the ball goes. So if the guy's open down the field, you take it. But you got to be able to get through your progressions. There's 5 eligible guys that you can throw to. And I love if that ball's open, first guy gets open, it's going to get the ball. Go through your progressions. But check downs, for all you young quarterbacks, take that check down when it's there. You'll have a long career.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes has kind of had to find that out the hard way. And he's kind of says that he has to keep reminding himself, take the check down. It's there. You don't have to force it down the field. So that's a good lesson.
Well, it's a lost art, to be honest with you. And that's communication with your running back. Hey, it's cover 2. Hey, bro, get out. You know what I mean? And just those guys not blocking all day, and then get them out. It spreads the whole it spreads the field out. But Alex Smith is a great player. I think what happens with a lot of quarterbacks, when you think of Super Bowl champions, Tom Brady, Kurt Warner, Brett Favre, Steve Young, Aaron Rodgers, like go through the whole freaking list, okay? Michael Vick, Steve McNair, they didn't win at Carson Palmer's, but they actually sat on the bench the first 6 weeks, the first year maybe, and they weren't thrown into the fire too fast. And I think the art of just learning to play the game, and I think that happened even with Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
The first game, maybe he was thrown into the fire too fast. Maybe he wouldn't have been developed. Develop is a lost, quote, art in the game. Everybody's throwing these guys in the fire too fast. And so I think him being around Alex Smith had a big impact on his career, being with Andy Reid and the talent that they have, but learning how to play the game, learn how to manage meetings, take notes, be prepared. Alex Smith probably doesn't get enough credit for what he accomplished, and probably just giving it to passing it on to Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and Clint keeps bringing up stigmas, so I'll just get this last one out of the way. John Gruden comes over to you guys after Tony Dungy. How much did he really help you against the Raiders? Everyone likes to say, oh, John Gruden knew everything, gave the defense, gave the offense, everything in the Raiders playbook. It was an easy Super Bowl for them. Let's get that stigma out of the way. Just how much did John Gruden help?
I really wish people would put some thought into it, to be honest with you. He was our coach for 1 year. He was their coach for 4 years. Yeah. They should know our system better than we know their system.
Exactly.
Don't you think? So I really, you know what? They were a great team. We were a great team. It was our day, you know. But Bill Callahan took them all to win. They'd been in the championship game a couple of years. They made an unbelievable run. It was just our day that day. But John Gruden was a huge impact on our team. He ended up bringing in 19 to 21 free agents that year.
Yeah.
Joe Giravicius, Keenan McCardell, Ricky Dudley, Ken Dilger, Roman Oman, Kerry Jenkins, Michael Pittman. I mean, the list goes. He had a big impact on just obviously what we had established within the team, but he made a big impact on our team. Obviously, that day was our day.
And what was it like for you and Rich Gannon? I mean, you guys start out there with the Vikings, and then here you are years and years later in the Super Bowl facing off against each other.
Yeah, I have all the respect in the world for Rich. And I was with him his first year in Minnesota. He was tough, smart, and he had a kind of crazy career his first 10 years of kind of figuring out his way. He went to Kansas City, got hot in Oakland, was unbelievable, MVP of the league. And I remember when John Gruden got the job at Tampa, the first call I made was to Rich. And so I said, Rich, what was this John Gruden guy like? You know, and I remember him saying, Brad, you'll never be more programmed, more prepared to play an NFL game than it is to play with him. So I love playing with Gruden, but that day it's unique that 2 quarterbacks on the same team got to play against each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, you talked about Keenan McCardell coming in for that 0-2 team, and Joe Giravicius as well. But you got Keyshawn Johnson there. Just kind of talk about that offense, because I feel like it's it's an unheralded offense, one that I look back at with just absolute, reverence. Mike Allstott, of course, who's become, such this revered figure in NFL history and how tough he was, and running backs like Michael Pittman and Aaron Stecker was a great kick returner. I mean, you had so much. So like that offense, I feel like just doesn't get its due. Keenan McCardell is a guy that I've always when you look at what he did with Jacksonville with Jimmy Smith, that tandem is one of my favorite tandems in NFL history. Keenan comes over to you guys, and like that just seemed like it just clicked. And with Keyshawn already there, that it just was sort of this perfect storm that lined up for you guys to be successful.
Right. The offense kind of gets lost a little bit because the defense was tremendous. They were, They had 3 Hall of Famers and Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, and John Lynch, and hopefully get a couple more, and Rondé Barber and Simeon Rice, but a lot of other great players on that defense too that don't get credit. Sheldon Quarles and Brian Kelly and Dexter Jackson, the MVP, and Greg Spires, the other tackle. But offensively, we averaged a lot. The second half of the season, you look at it, we were scoring over 28 points a game. At that time, it was a different kind of game. And honestly, if you look at first half numbers compared to our second half numbers, a lot of times we play with the lead and we'd run the clock out. So you don't get quite the crazy numbers that you get at that time. The game has changed, but 3 receivers in Keyshawn and Joe Jurevicius and Keenan McCardell, phenomenal players, big receivers. And the West Coast system were perfect in that system. Great blockers too. And then Mike Allstott, Michael Pittman. I mean, we had a lot of weapons. We took care of the ball, did not turn it over very much at all. We scored every possession after every turnover that year. It's pretty incredible. And we scored I'll say this, inside the red zone, we scored every time, whether it's a field goal or touchdown. So there's just a lot of positives there.
Yeah.
You have to have everything go right, but the offense doesn't get enough credit. But that, at the end of the day, you're playing for a ring, and it goes back to perception sometimes.
Yeah, you played with Keyshawn Johnson, with T.O., the kind of 2 of the receivers that have that perception out there, tough to play with. They're always coming back to the quarterback, screaming at him, "I'm open. What are you doing?" Talk to us about playing with Keyshawn and T.O. and what it was really like.
Yeah, actually, it's crazy. I played with Chris Carter, Randy Moss, and Andre Reed and Tim Brown and Jake Reed and Jason Witten. I mean, played with a lot of great players over time, and hard to mention them all. But Keyshawn was actually one of the easiest receivers I ever played with, to be honest with you. Now, perception-wise, he was in the media, and he wrote that book called "Give Me the Damn Ball" and all that kind of stuff. But I remember there was a game, a Monday Night Football game. We were playing the Rams, and he had like no catches at halftime. And I tell you, the coverage for me was always going to dictate where the ball goes. And I remember in the huddle, I said, "Hey, Key, man, I'm going to get you some balls here. Don't worry." And he's like, "Brad, don't worry about it. Just make the read. We got to win this game, and I'll catch plenty of balls." He ended up catching like 6 balls that night. But I remember it was just like he was actually easy for me to play with. So I didn't have any problem with Key. And then Terrell, when I was in Dallas, I was backing up Tony Romo. Only got to play a couple games there, but his work ethic was phenomenal. He was a good teammate. And some things kind of get lost with him, with perception-wise, with some things that kind of took place. I think things were always blown out of proportion a little bit with him, and different kind of guy. But I really appreciated who he was and his greatness of being Hall of Fame player.
Well, when you think about football, you think about time and place and how different things could have went in different directions. And I go back to the 01 offseason, which is where you go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but the Baltimore Ravens had been pursuing you after their Super Bowl season because, winning a Super Bowl with this Trent Dilfer guy, well, that's not enough. We've got to go get a real quarterback out here. So they're pursuing you. They go with Elvis Grbac. So I've just said real quarterback and Elvis Grbac in the same sentence. Won't do it again. This is as Chiefs fans here, Brad. Give us a break. Right. So just to think about how all that went, do you kind of remember the process of how did you kind of have a preference either way? Baltimore goes with Elvis, or did you kind of steer that, or your agent steer that in a different direction to get you to Tampa?
Yeah, it was steered. It was totally different. Totally different. Obviously, I had the choice to go to Baltimore. I had a great relationship with Brian Billick. I was going to go there. And then what happened, honestly, the contract was a better contract in Tampa. And 2 reasons why I went to Tampa. Okay, so 1, the contract was better. 2, Tampa had never won a Super Bowl. Baltimore just won it. And I felt like I want to put my stamp on my career with a new team. Hadn't won a championship in the state of Florida since Bob Greasy in 71, 72. So I felt like it was a right fit for me. I had a great relationship with Tony Dungy and knew him for 3 years. We were together in Minnesota. So it was my decision. and then I chose to go to Tampa, and then Elvis came to Baltimore, and then Trent went to, I believe, Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, first to win a Super Bowl there in Tampa, and then first also to catch your own pass and run it in for a touchdown, 1997 against the Panthers. We experienced that here in Kansas City in a playoff game. Marcus Mariota caught his own pass for a touchdown, ended up beating us. That's a memory we'll just move on from. But talk about you being the first guy to do that and when you kind of learned that.
Yeah, I was playing for the Minnesota Vikings. I think it was
97, I think.
97.
Yeah.
97 against the Panthers. Yep, you got it. And, we were on the 3-yard line. It was third down. The play was called far left slot, spear, rip dial. So basically it was a stick route by the tight end and the fullback on the flat. And I dropped back. I threw the ball. I was throwing to Andrew Glover. The ball got tipped up to me. So at that time, usually you would bat the ball down, but I knew we were in field goal range. So if I actually caught the ball, we still could kick the field goal from that range. And but then I knew you could make a double pass, 2 forward passes. So yeah. I scrambled. I dove into the end zone. They called it for 6 points. And then after the game, I was out eating with my family. I got a phone call that said, "Hey, Brad, man, that counted as a touchdown pass and a touchdown catch." And so it's 12 points in fantasy football, won an ESPY award for play of the year and those kind of things. And so it's just cool to say that was right place, right time. If I'd have been on the 4-yard line, I might have been a yard short. On the 3-yard line, it kind of worked out. So it's just cool play. And then later, Marcus Mariota, he made that play against Kansas City when he was in Tennessee. I actually talked to Marcus about it, and so it's always kind of cool to be the first.
Yeah, that's just bringing back some bad memories, like Noah said. But yes, yours that's the first one I remember, the only one I want to remember. That was a great play. Brad, what does the game of football kind of mean to you today? Because you come in, you're drafted by the Vikings, you have 2 separate stints in Minnesota, you win a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you live kind of on the East Coast, you live in Georgia, you got sons at A&M, you played at Florida State. How has it been kind of transitioning into just kind of being a fan of the game, watching the game? I see a lot of your TikToks and on Instagram that a lot of stuff with Tampa fans, with Tampa Bay jersey on. Are you able to kind of make that transition as a fan? Like, who do you cheer for these days, just kind of as a fan?
Yeah, I don't really cheer for anybody. I cheer for people and situations. I just love good football. I love good sports. It doesn't matter what the sport is, and so I love all my time everywhere. To be honest with you, in Washington and Vikings and Dallas and Tampa. Like played 1 year at London Monarchs and those kind of things. But I'm very thankful for my career. So videos are kind of come out however they come out. So I'm not really choose one team over another with the TikTok kind of thing. But I think sports are incredible. I think football is awesome. I think it's the ultimate team game. So many players on the team, so many coaches, so many situations. One player in tennis you just can't dominate the game. It's a total team game. It's year-round work. It's team. It's competitive. It's situations. It's playing hurt. It's dealing with adversity. Those kind of things. And so now I've coached every kind of football you can think of, from youth football, middle school football, high school football. Went to a couple state championships. I help out youth football kids trying to throw the football, whatever it may be. And so I just love kind of giving back.
What do you make of Patrick Mahomes? I mean, he came bursting onto the scene, 50 touchdowns, 5,000 yards, MVP, wins a Super Bowl, and then loses. I want to kind of also ask about that Super Bowl against your Tampa Bay Buccaneers there and what happened there. I mean, the Chiefs were decimated on the offensive line. It was just a long, hard day for Patrick. But, man, him bursting on the scene in 2018, kind of taking the league by storm.
It's incredible. I mean, obviously he's loaded with talent. Athletic family with his dad playing baseball, those kind of things, but has a unique ability to just throw the ball in any kind of weather, any kind of angle, not afraid of the moment. To be a leader as young as he is, to win a Super Bowl as young as he was is incredible. Smart kid, is going to have a long career. It's fun to watch, and you really like it. Seems like you like his personality, and see him playing golf on the Golf Channel and whatever he's doing now. Just a tremendous athlete is what it is. But you see that fire that he has, that great leadership skills. That's what gets lost. We kind of watch how far he can throw the ball or how hard he can throw the ball, but what gets lost is the art of playing quarterback. And it's so much about being leadership and being consistent and just doing it daily. And that's what made guys great. It's going to be fun to watch him for a long time.
Brad, we see so many of the rules in the NFL geared towards the offense, geared towards protecting quarterbacks from injury and personal fouls and things like that, blows to the head, all these different things that kind of we see now that protect the offense and really lead to quarterbacks putting up bigger numbers and things like that. Or do you ever look at that and just be like, man, where was this in 1997? Like what? Because I mean, it really is. It's really a different game for quarterbacks. We were having a debate with some people about Joe Montana's time here in Kansas City, where he threw, I think, 16 touchdowns in one season. I was like, but the impact he had here was so great. Chiefs go to the AFC Championship game, didn't do it again for 23 more years. And also Joe was banged up and he was hurt and playing against these defense that could bump and run at the line of scrimmage and mug receivers down the field. Man, this game has just changed so much. It really does favor the quarterbacks and really receivers now.
Yeah, the game is different. Rules are different. Schemes are different. Coaches have gotten better. Kids have gotten better. Players have gotten better. You see it. I mean, you got youth football. I mean, I was the last quarterback to have ever taken a snap, every snap from underneath center when I played for John Gruden. Every snap. Now, I don't know if kids know how to take a snap from underneath center unless you're playing for a wing T school. Okay, so the game has changed. Video games have changed, and check with me system coverages. RPO games have changed. The numbers are higher, obviously, in the pro game, but that's what you want, the evolution of the game to get better. But I'm not going to say I think the quarterbacks are tremendous now. Okay, last year I think there was only one quarterback that threw below 60%. You had four guys, I think, three or four guys throw over 70%. Where in my time or Joe Montana's time, if you threw over 60%, it was a big deal, you know. But the game has changed. There's a lot more bubbles, a lot more screens, a lot more just getting the ball out of your hands. But those guys are very accurate with it, and I'm not going to take anything away from them. But you can't. It's not fair to compare quarterbacks' numbers today with the guys of the yesteryear. And the game was a great game back then. It's a great game now. I appreciate the rules. Appreciate taking care of the quarterbacks. As a fan, you want to see your healthy players play. So. Kudos to the league for doing that.
And I'm sure the answer is just going to be yes on this, as it probably should be, but I feel like I need to ask it. Tom Brady, Joe Montana, do you say that obviously Tom Brady's the greatest over Joe Montana now with his 7 Super Bowls, everything he did? He did get Bill Belichick, Joe Montana, Bill Walsh, Jerry Rice, John Taylor. Is it an open shut case? Tom Brady's the greatest of all time?
I think just to appreciate all their greatnesses, you know what I mean? But I'm a huge fan of both those guys, but just because you won a Super Bowl, because you didn't, Dan Marino, John Stockton in basketball, don't take that away from those guys either. You know what I mean? But obviously they're all Hall of Famers. But Joe was just fun to watch. It was like he was playing in tennis shoes, and just he would throw that little floater out there. Nowadays he probably wouldn't get drafted. He's weak, slow, bad arm, but
skinny legs.
Like, God, he's not big enough, but beautiful accuracy, timing, anticipation, leadership, playing in the clutch, consistency. That's him. But to watch what Tom Brady's done is phenomenal.
Well, Brad, we honestly can't thank you enough for your time here, for jumping on with us today. What do you got next going on? What kind of thing can people be watching for you on TikTok or on Instagram? Brad_Johnson_14. It looks like you had a heck of a 4th of July. You're red, white, and blue. Just flag waving gentlemen. We would get along great, my friend. That's awesome. So what's next? What can we expect next? You got any ideas churning? Do we need to give you some ideas? What are we going to do next?
I got so many people trying to give me trick shots and this kind of thing. All I can say is just stay tuned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's honestly, there's 2 Picasso. I've done some. I don't know how I could ever do again. There's one it's called corner pocket, second pole. Stay in the corner of the end zone, hit the second pole 5 times. Like, could never do it again. I don't know if anybody else will ever do it again. But there's another thing. I'm trying to break the Guinness World Record. Okay, so it's 2 basketballs at one time. And right now I hit 82. I'd like to hit 83, 84, make contact with the Guinness World Record. And hopefully they give me a shot at it. So it's going to be kind of fun to watch, see what happens.
Oh, we will definitely be watching and enjoying, Brad. It has been a pleasure to go down memory lane with you. We will be watching Texas A&M this year, hoping the best for both your sons there, and really would love to see Max there at the helm. I saw him enough at LSU. In fact, I think he, seeing what he did there, definitely transitioned well to Jimbo's offense, and hopefully a little more wide open actually than what was going on there at LSU. Brad, thank you so much, sir. We'll be watching, and best of luck, my friend, going forward. Stay safe and stay healthy, my friend.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys having me on the show. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Talk soon.
He gone.
We're still
Brad
long.
was great. Brad was so good.